Welcome back to the Quantum Health Connection podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Vanessa Baldwin, with my incredible co-host, Heather Crimson. And we have a fun episode for you today. Our focus really is to help you prepare for winter by learning how to maximize your melatonin production, which is so important. So I'm excited to get into this with you, Heather. But I also just want to remind people if they can kindly rate and review the podcast, we really appreciate every one of you listeners. We appreciate that you support the podcast. You're interested in our advice and our knowledge that we share with you about health and wellness. And we just would love your feedback. So if you have any time, we definitely appreciate that. And of course, you can tune in on YouTube, Bright Light Wellness and Enlightened Mood as well. So yeah, Heather, I'm excited to talk about, preparing for winter by maximizing our melatonin production because man, when I've said this before, I'm sure on the podcast, because I say it all the time, because when I learned quantum health, I'm like, it's sunlight, it's sunlight, it's sunlight, it's sunlight, right? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Darkness is also important, right? So,
Yeah, it's about the polarity. It's about the yin and yang,
yeah,
right? And we can't always
yes,
one mode or one frequency. We have to have that balance. We have to have that dichotomy. But I
yep.
also want to mention, like, this is so important, Vanessa. This information about how to align with nature is literally saving so many lives. And that mental health improves, your physical health improves. So that's why we're asking you guys to rate our podcast because we have been so grateful to have the number of listeners increasing. So please share with everyone you know who might be receptive and interested in or who could benefit from this information. But if you rate our podcast, that'll help us because we are very committed to this effort, our mission to get this information out there into the people's awareness and
Mhm.
to educate. And that's such a central piece, Vanessa, because it's such a huge paradigm shift. And we've been basically been taught to be scared of nature, to sun and whatnot. We've been taught to be not trust our bodies, to be disconnected from our bodies. So many things about our modern way of living is harmful to our electric bio. We call it bioelectric. Bleh, I can't even talk today. Our bioelectric beings, like the way our nature is. And so we really need to get this information out there so people can understand that that's not the way of living that we have now is not serving us. But also, we're going to grow the podcast. We're trying to get sponsors. We're working on a whole approach to do that. So we would like to have your help in helping us to do that. So thank you so much for being willing to rate our podcast if you've been listening for a while. So yeah,
Yeah.
so winter time, Vanessa, it's really interesting because so many people who are basically practicing quantum and circadian strategies every day. And I don't even like the word strategies, but more like practices as a way of life, have said one of the biggest shifts in their view of winter has been going from, oh, I hate winter. It's so cold. I just feel awful. I get a low mood. Things kind of go wonky, right? Some
Mhm.
people get skin issues in the winter, and there's reasons for all this, but they've pivoted from that to, oh my God, I love winter so much, right? So what do you think that's about, Vanessa?
Yeah, it's so true. Well, because they're living in sync with it, they're getting more repair, they're getting more healing, they're still maintaining their energy, their mood stays more stable. They likely lose weight in the wintertime, which is actually when you're supposed to lose weight. You actually should be kind of gaining a little bit weight through summer and fall because that's actually us preparing for the scarcity of winter, right? And then you lose weight in the winter. So winter, you tolerate the cold a lot more when you do this kind of lifestyle. So you're not like, oh, you hate the cold so much. You don't hate the dark as much. You enjoy all of that. And you're also like, when you're more like aligned to this lifestyle too, I find for me, 1,000,000% is you're not like, you're able to like easily, and I'm saying very easily for someone who used to be food addicted, like 100%, I'm very easily able to resist the junk like of the holidays because obviously it's coming up, right? There's going to be Halloween, there's going to be Thanksgiving, there's going to be, Christmas and New Year's and all that. And I don't know about you, Heather, but I can go to like I was just at my nephew's birthday party and they had pizza and cupcakes and stuff like that. I don't even bat an eye. I don't even like, it doesn't even bother me to be in those areas and it's not like you can't ever indulge or do things like that. And it's not really all about the food, but it's the lifestyle that creates me not wanting that, is what I mean. It's not because I eat so clean all the time, but it's also because I get my light environment right and I'm regulating things like leptin and all those things. I'm not really interested in that. Like it doesn't even, I don't have cravings for that. And this is somebody who if they made a cake or brownies or cookies, who would think about it in bed, like couldn't wait to go for them, or used to eat chips in bed because they were so food addicted. So I definitely have food addiction in my past history. So I think living this lifestyle also helps you not need all of that. Like you're meeting your needs in other ways so that you don't need all of that to also meet your needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think if you live aligned with the seasons and you adopt some of the things we're going to talk about today, you there's a whole shift in energy, right? Like you're getting
Hmm.
calmer, you're getting quieter. A lot
Hmm.
of our colleagues say that they don't really exercise as vigorously. They really,
Yes, me too. I'm agreeance with that.
right? There's more rest because you're really in a rest and repair mode, like a deep cleaning mode, if you will, deep cleansing, deep restoration. It's supposed to be calming, soothing, thinking like think about tea and coziness and fires and slower pace. And really, you're turning inward too from a spiritual perspective,
Mm.
really take stock, right? In the darkness fosters that in just an inner world. So you're not as like summer's like outward focused, right? You're outside a lot. Not that we're not outside in the winter, we definitely are, but it's less, right? Because it's darker, it's darker
Yeah.
longer. But there's that metaphorical, like I'm going inward, I'm healing, cleaning all the things because of the melatonin, which we're going to talk about. So again, and I'm like you, like, definitely struggle with emotional eating from lots of trauma.
Mhm.
Um, definitely obsessed about food. But the thing about it, the thing that's helped the most is the circadian practices, like
Yeah.
tons, right? Because my nervous system feels so much calmer. The inflammation is so much lower. Like, really, I think that people start to crave substances or do behaviors that are compulsive because they don't feel good inside. They feel off, they feel amped up, or they feel anxious, or they feel kind of down, whatever it is. So we seek to alter our state by either substances or behaviors that change our state so we aren't as consumed by the inner distress, or we just kind of feel disoriented. So
Mm.
and when I think about that, I think about chronic jet lag, which if you're not minding your winter practices properly, you're going to have an worsened circadian rhythm or more dysfunctional circadian rhythm, right?
Hmm. Yeah, because the winter is very different. Like there's a lot of things that we have to do differently in the winter than we would do in the summertime. And that's because especially the more northernly latitude you are, right? Because the light changes so much, right? You have this much longer summer days, right? The day is so much longer and much shorter winter days. Like my day, it goes to like 8 hours of daylight, some of my days. Like it's low, like there's not a lot of daylight. And then there is definitely that shift to do less. I just feel it in my body. Like I don't crave like salads. I just said to you the other day, like I was like, oh, I definitely don't want a salad anymore because I just don't, it sounds gross. I'm like, I want a soup. I want a stew. I want something warm. Like I want a tea, like you said, like a warm tea. Like you just crave all the warmth and all that, like, I don't know, like those winter things, like sitting in front of a fire, like you said. And that's so true because I'm someone who loves to exercise. I just enjoy it. And as soon as like the winter will come in, I will definitely like my exercise becomes more walking, and maybe a little bit of other exercise, but that's pretty much it because I don't feel that need to do that more like
Mhm.
heavy, more intense workouts as much too. So it is definitely a more tuning in. And I love that you brought in like that spirituality of that tuning in as well, that slowing down and just like kind of just unfortunately all the holidays that we have throughout the winter time kind of makes that more challenging, I feel like, for people to do that inward work and that slowing down because they're working a 9 to 5, right? And then they also have to do all the stuff to get ready for the holidays, and it feels so stressful. And it's like, ooh, that's exactly the opposite of what we need. That culture that we have in our modern day society is like, we really need to be doing the opposite in winter. We need to be like slowing down and resting and repairing and not stressing as much. So that's kind of a sad story of, I guess, a little bit, but the more you do these practices, the more you'll be able to still slow down and get that rest and repair that you really need.
Right. And it's an invitation, right? There's an invitation there
Yeah.
to evaluate what's really meaningful to you. Because you're like, people think like you just expressed, like you have to get ready. No, you don't. You don't have
Yeah.
to do anything you don't want to do. You don't have to buy.
Yeah, that's so true.
I mean, I sound like kind of, I'm being a little sarcastic right now, but you truly don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. You can decide, like, what do I really want to do? Because I think part of what happens in the holidays, I think, is really hard on people's bodies and minds is that they feel like they have to do all the things or somehow they're not being a good person. That's
Yeah.
true. You get to decide how many parties you're going to, how much
Hmm.
sugar you're going to eat and wait, how late you're going to stay up, all the things. Like you're in charge
Hmm.
of that. So I look at winter as a way to really take stock in like how do I want to live?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Oh,
then
I
of course
love
you
that.
want to be social. Like it's a time of having social gatherings and stuff, but do it in a way that works for you instead of against you. Like if you're like, oh, I gotta do all these things, then maybe you should ask yourself, why am I doing this? Right. So that's all I want to say about that. We could go on and on just about the psychology of it for I love that stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah.
let's talk about the sort of the circadian aspect. And Vanessa, it's like summer is vitamin D, right? We have
Hmm.
all this beautiful UV light. We want to maximize in a safe way, building up our solar callus so we get the vitamin D, the melanin, all that beautiful melatonin production because we're getting lots of infrared light. And then the UV light for the vitamin D, UVB. And then in the winter, we shift to melatonin.
Yeah. So we only make, some people may not know, but you only make vitamin D from if you live in a northern latitude, not if you live in an equatorial region, but you only make vitamin D spring through fall, right? UVB just started to leave. I'm getting like what's happening for me is like some days I'm getting a little bit, some days I'm getting none. It's kind of shifting for me in where like in, where I am. So, summer is the time to maximize that vitamin D production through sunlight on the skin, through all, and just maximize that and store that up as much as we can to use through winter. And then, like, some people will say, oh, well, you should supplement vitamin D in the winter because you need it for all of its benefits, like its immune support and blah, 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 like all the things, right? Now, the thing is that nature is so smart and so wise that it never makes a mistake, and it has a built-in other mechanism for us to use in the wintertime. Like it's going to up, if you're following circadian practices, what will happen is, yeah, you're not going to make vitamin D anymore from UVB sunlight because it's no longer present in the winter. But what you're going to do, the darkness is going to have you maximizing more melatonin. So melatonin is the hormone of winter. And what I think is really cool, I learned this from Carrie Bennett. She's an amazing resource. I learned something new from her today that I didn't even know, which I'll share later. Um, I could listen to her literally all day long talk because she's just so brilliant, really. And, she has taught me that vitamin D receptors are everywhere in the body, which of course we knew, but melatonin also binds to these vitamin D receptors. So it's like in place of we're not making vitamin D at this time, now melatonin is going to come in and do that job, right? So it's this important, like you said before, the yin and the yang, the vitamin D in the summer, the melatonin in the winter, and the nature makes it work for us in this beautiful symphony. Like nature is not telling you to go take a vitamin D supplement. That doesn't make any sense, right? So if the vitamin D is lacking, it's going to give you something else in place of it to support those receptors, is what that means, really. So
Like
yeah, we just have to learn. Go ahead.
when we talk about trusting our body, we also have to trust that we're given, all of what we need in order to thrive in our natural environment. And only because of the challenges of modern living, right, we get too much of certain frequencies and not enough of others, that we end up having to go to this supplementing and biohacking and all the imbalances start to happen in our body, which leads us down these, trajectory of having problems aside from things like trauma. But this is the thing, if we honor these cycles and we trust our bodies, we trust nature, it's taken care of. Like we don't need to go and take a vitamin D supplement because vitamin D supplements really can interfere with your body's functioning, right?
Yeah.
They can create other problems. So it is not a panacea. It's not necessary. I would never take them again. Like I did for a period of time, I don't know, like 15 years ago, but I would never take them again.
Yeah, I took them too, and it's very much correlated. I was taking 10,000 IUGs because I thought that that was the right thing to do. You listen to everybody, they says, "Oh, you take vitamin D supplement," and mine was very high. I still wound up with autoimmunity, and I wound up getting a thyroid disorder around that time. So I do, and that vitamin D can clog up the thyroid receptors. I think we mentioned that on our thyroid episode. If you go listen to that one, I mean, I'm not saying that that was the cause. I really don't know, but it maybe was one of the factors. There's a many factors to it. And then also, Jim Stevenson Jr., maybe we should get him on the podcast, add him to our list, right? If you want to learn more research about vitamin D and the negative effects of supplementation of that, because the problem with a supplement is he has a lot of reasons and all the research that really backs all this up. But the problem with the supplement really mainly is that when you're not making it from nature, you can't really modulate how much is needed in the body, and it can cause dysfunction, right? So if you're never going to have an overproduction or too much vitamin D in your system, which can cause an issue if you're making it from sunlight. But if you're taking it endogenous, like not if you're taking it, on externally, then it can get dysregulated and you can have too much and it can cause dysfunction. So if you do it from nature the way you're supposed to, you're not going to have those problems. So I don't know. I think we just need to look toward nature and stop looking outside of ourselves, right? For
Mhm.
answers, right? When,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So shifting from like the bright and sunny summers to how can we embrace winter and feel good about it and actually enjoy it, right? Is that we want to think about what's the darkness doing for me? How am
Mm-hmm.
I benefiting from more darkness and cold, both, right?
Mm-hmm.
So more darkness means that you have more opportunity to make more melatonin, which you absolutely want to do, right? You want to be able to feel like, great, it's getting dark and I get to put on my blue blockers and I'm going to have more time spent with melatonin in rest and repair mode, right?
Yeah. And that actually helps you reverse age. I feel like you can come out. I feel like honestly, you can come out in winter, like emerge in spring healthier than you were previously because you're really spending all that time doing all of that repair through winter. Because you're going to get more melatonin production and hopefully you're going to go to bed earlier than you do in the summer, and then you're going to sleep longer and you're going to repair more. Like that is the goal. And honestly, I like more melatonin, more cellular repair, younger you. That's how I look at it. Like it's simply that, right? But we have to remember that melatonin, like, is that master repair hormone, but it's also controlled by light signals, light and dark signals.
Mhm.
So we're going to get more autophagy, which is cellular repair. We're going to get more apoptosis, which is cell death, which is actually where we're cleaning up those cancer cells, which is why artificial light at night is just so damaging because you're not going to clean up those cancer cells and get rid of them or just do cellular repair. And you're also going to do more mitophagy, which is repairing damaged mitochondria. So we want to make sure that we are honoring those light and dark cycles that the sun, is giving us those cues. This way we can maximize that melatonin production and get all of that repair because it's vital. It really is. And honestly, I don't know, a couple hundred years ago, nobody would have been taught this. Like you would have just done it naturally because it didn't, like we didn't have light bulbs. It didn't exist. Like naturally, it just was darker or you had candlelight, right? And then no one would, we wouldn't have to have this information be told to you because naturally you would get more melatonin and more repair and more darkness and more cold in winter because that was your only choice, really.
You didn't have a way to mess up your melatonin and so forth.
Right. Our
Yeah.
modern world, causes that problem,
Yeah. We have the
unfortunately.
good news is you guys are listening to this and now you have you're armed with this knowledge and you have the means in order to prevent that imbalance from happening, prevent that you're because the thing is that you should because that's the thing is like we get too much artificial light. And when we say artificial light, like Vanessa just mentioned, pre-electrification, we had candlelight. So when we say artificial light, we're not that doesn't mean red light. So I use red
Hmm.
light bulbs or like orangey light bulbs or
Yep.
all of those kinds of things, and that's fine. Like you don't have to run around with candles. I mean, I do that in the winter, but not every night.
Do you use candles? I never do
Oh
that
yeah.
because yeah, I just
Oh, oh,
I need a good source of good candles. You're gonna have to send me some sources of good
I
candles. Like that's number one. And then number two is I'm always like afraid I'm gonna like forget to blow it out. And then I have
know.
kids who
I
can be
know.
just that's the other issue. So we definitely use a lot of red light bulbs, orange light bulbs. Heather and I both have discount codes for Midwest Red Light Therapy. Definitely recommend getting those light bulbs. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because um sometimes if you buy like a red light bulb on like Amazon and not from a good quality company, there's just like painting the light bulb red and it's still emitting blue. So you want to make sure it's $15. Just go out and get a good get a light bulb, put a few in strategic places. Like I have one red light bulb in my bedroom, one red light bulb in my son's bedroom. The other boys have orange, and then I have an orange bulb right here next to my desk. And then I have two lamps that are like they're not orange. I don't know where my husband found these light bulbs, but they're so beautiful. They're old. Like he's like, you're gonna love these light bulbs. He pulled them out of the drawer, and I was like, I am gonna love these light bulbs, huh? I plugged them in right now. They're like this beautiful orangey tone. I don't know where they came from, but they're like amazing. So I have those two over there, and they're perfect. So basically, just if you strategically place light bulbs in your house that are circadian friendly, you've done it. Like you're doing it.
Mhm.
And then I still recommend people to wear blue blockers. And the reason why is depending on where you live, but I live in a more, suburban area and next door they got lights on and they got, those white, very strong blue lights outside that it comes in. So I like to block the street lamps and all that. So I still wear blue blockers, even though my house is circadian lighting friendly.
Yep, yep. I have the same situation. We'll go over that again at the end, you guys, just because we want to make sure that you understand the simple, easy things you can do that are so powerful to help nourish your body and be aligned with the seasons.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple types of melatonin, and this is so cool because I didn't know this before I started learning about circadian rhythm and
Hmm.
all the quantum
Yeah.
biology things. But there's a pineal melatonin, which that converts from tryptophan to serotonin. In darkness, then it becomes pineal melatonin, which is what helps us to sleep and also helps us with some restoration and repair. Super important. So you want to get sunlight exposure in the morning in order to support that melatonin production. And then then it goes through the pathways, right? The serotonin, da, da, da. But also you need that serotonin. So if you're not getting enough early morning sunlight exposure, like UVA light, you're not going to make enough of the raw materials, have the raw materials and raw ingredients to make what you need for later in the night from the pineal gland. There's also subcellular melatonin made.
Before you go to that, I just want to remind people that that is made in the eye, right? So if you, again, wearing sunglasses, contact glasses, that's not going to happen because unfortunately, a lot of contacts block UV light, a lot of glasses do. I think the Dailies brand, Dr. Valerie said, the Quantum Eye Doc said the Dailies brand, I've heard her mention, is better, that will not block UV light for contacts. But you want to make sure that you're allowing this to happen because this tryptophan to serotonin conversion is happening through the eye. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're not blocking the eye and get on that UV light to make sure that that happens. So that all can be, because it's funny. I always think like melatonin is the hormone of darkness, but that's actually controlled by light and that we make in morning light, right? Like it's so interesting, right? Like, so light is really the story, right? But it's, darkness is too. But anyway, so you have to make more of it. You're going to build like your storage form in that morning light. So you have to be in that UVA light. And of course, more is better, but I know I recommend at least 10, 15, 20 minutes would be great. Like that's something like that. But, get out in that UV light because that's going to really be supportive to supporting that pathway to support that pineal gland melatonin. And it only gets released in the absence of light. So if you have lights on, this does not get released. That's like really important. Like if you're exposed to blue light, particularly artificial blue light, screens, computers, TVs, light bulbs, fluorescence LEDs. I don't know. You go to Walmart, you got wherever you go, like whatever. You're suppressing that from happening. And really, melatonin should be released this pineal gland melatonin should be released much, much earlier in winter because it takes about 4 hours of darkness for it to actually release. So it should happen much earlier in winter because you're getting darker sooner or earlier. So in my latitude, it can get dark at like 4 or 5. That doesn't mean I'm pitch black, but I am wearing blue blockers, to support that. So then that melatonin should be released at like 8 o'clock, you know? That means I should be sleeping and repairing at that time.
Well,
Yeah.
my general rule of thumb is to put the blue blockers on right after sunset. It's just habit, and now it's automatic, and I rarely forget because it's an instinct. I think it's basically
Yes.
amplifying our natural instincts of what our body wants, and so that helps to reinforce the behavior and it makes it easy. So
Do you have like such a visual response to it, right? Like I'm like I
I,
can't like at night when it's dark. I mean, I can't take it during the day, like the artificial blue light typically. Like I even if like I'm like Target or something like that, like I don't do well with it, but at night, forget it. Like I'm so my body's just so attuned that as soon as the sun sets, I'm like, oh yeah, where's my glasses? I need those right now. Like I just automatically feel it.
yeah, no, during the day too, I went to the hardware
Yeah.
store today to get batteries, and I'm like the person who I walk in and if I don't already have it on, I'm like, oh, and then
Yeah.
I go in the hardware store and I'm like, okay, that's better. Now I can function.
Yeah, seriously. I feel the same way.
I don't know the right words, and it's like offensive almost. It's so jarring. It's very caustic. It's like hostile energy, these light, and people just like because they've gotten used to it. that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's good for you. Like we could
And
be,
but in their defense, I was that one way too.
I
Like I'm sure
was
you
too. I
you too.
was, I had no
I was
idea.
so blue light toxic that I was so blue light toxic that sunlight bothered my eyes,
Right.
right?
See, it's inverted. When I talked about the polarities, like we're all in
Yes.
it. We don't like we do the wrong things at the wrong time and we think this is good and this is not, we don't, it's like we've lost touch with our native instincts. Like we can't even discern, right? We can't discern what is it that's nourishing or not. That really scares me, Vanessa. But anyway, let's go on to the subcellular melatonin. Subcellular melatonin, yeah, melatonin. Your mitochondria make melatonin. So it's either in the eye pathway, right, through the tryptophan and whatnot, but then your mitochondria make melatonin. But this is in response to daytime sunlight exposure, the red and infrared. Because remember, the sun is like 48 or some percentage around there percent of the sun's light is infrared and red. So we want to receive as much of that on our bare skin as possible, which in winter is harder. But you got to get out there and get that because then you're getting the cold exposure, which is amazing, right? I mean, not if it's like zero degrees. I mean, I get that, but if you can tolerate it when the sun is out, having some exposure more than just your face to make this subcellular, too much matcha today, you guys. Subcellular.
Subcellular. Yeah. Subcellular melatonin. So this melatonin is not going to make you sleepy, but what it does is it helps you repair and clean up damaged cells all day long. So the thing about this is like red and infrared, like Heather was saying, is always present whenever UV light is out, right? But it's present literally all day long. So it's kind of always like that balance, right? It's the blue light and the red light. They antidote each other, they balance each other, right? And that's why when you're out in UV light with infrared, like nature provides, it's not inflammatory anymore because now nature is also providing that subcellular melatonin to, heal and repair simultaneously, right? But your mitochondria, yeah, make this all day long. And, it's available in winter too, even when UV is not present, it's always available. And it just cleans up and repairs all day long. So it's like instead of waiting for pineal gland melatonin to do all the work at night, right? Now this subcellular melatonin can do the work during the day too, right? And help. And the problem is our modern lifestyles are very void of infrared because we live indoors. We close the windows, which block infrared and UV light. So all of our doors and windows are closed, unfortunately. And our light exposures, if you're not using like incandescents, if you're using typical white, LEDs or fluorescents, you're not getting any infrared from there either. So you're not really getting infrared inside, most people. And most people are not spending a lot of time outside. So open windows and doors, incandescent bulbs during the day is a better option because they're going to emit some infrared.
Wait,
I all
incandescent
my
bulbs. Vanessa, the incandescent bulbs are hard to find. So this country and all of its wisdom is like, oh, we have to preserve energy, blah, blah, blah. I think it's BS, but whatever.
yeah, we have to preserve energy, but what are we losing out on?
No, I know, but then you're getting cancer. So the thing is you buy the Edison bulbs. Buy the
Yeah.
Edison bulbs. If those are still available. So they're like decorative in that category.
Mhm.
So thank
Mhm.
goodness we can still get those. I only use Edison bulbs. Well, they have other ones like NIRA has good UVA type bulbs, I think, or they have more red in them. Yeah.
Somebody else is making them. Is it
SOLORA, I think it is. That's Dr. Wright E, or is that more E?
More Eid.
Yeah, yeah. So he has that company, and then there's the NIRA, NIRA. You can get bulbs from them.
Is that Scott Zimmerman's?
I don't know. I think so.
Scott Zimmerman is making a
Yeah.
light bulb also that has infrared in it as well. So you can buy them in other places if you can't. I still have incandescents. I bought a bunch when I heard they were going to be banned. I stocked
No,
up.
you bought them all. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, not all of them, but I definitely stocked up because I'm like, oh, we have to have incandescents, But yeah, you can definitely the Edison style bulbs work beautifully, and that's what Carrie uses. She's always saying that's what she uses. So
They're beautiful. So how do you, but there's other ways to get that infrared in exposure, and which remember also helps to build up your exclusion zone water, right? And structure your exclusion zone water, which is absolutely imperative. So we want to find ways of supplementing this. So you can use photobiomodulation. Like in the winter, I do use that a lot more because I'm in a very sunny place, so I don't need it as much the rest of the year. But Vanessa and I both recommend Midwest Red Light Therapy for that too. We both have discount codes. So if you want to get a small device to help supplement, only use it during the daytime because you don't want to be using a frequency that's not actually out in nature at the time you're being exposed to it. So if
Mhm.
you're going to use photobiomodulation, which is like a red light therapy device, you want to use that during the daytime only. And some people don't do well using it too close to bed because it can create energy, so you'd be too stimulated. So maybe
Agreed. It's
mid-morning
the
or
brightness too, I think.
it's bright, yeah. So mid-morning, mid-afternoon or whatever. So I do use that, and I think it definitely helps me a
Yeah.
lot.
I heard some research recently stating that red light therapy is best to use in the morning time. Of course, when the sun is already out. I mean, I would recommend, of course, seeing sunrise, doing that first before doing that. You want to get natural light into your eyes. But yeah, I definitely use a red light therapy device in the winter time too, because I mean, listen, we can get sunlight, right, on our skin. And infrared, I do want to mention, penetrates, 30 to 10 to 30 centimeters deep and can actually penetrate through some clothing, but not many, many, many layers, right? If you're like all bundled up like in winter. But if you're just in like a t-shirt or something like that, it can penetrate through. So, you can get some, and get outside with less clothing. We'll talk about that for cold is always helpful too. But yeah, if it's another good way to we're so deficient in red light, really, honestly, as just a society. So using a red light therapy device can really amplify your healing. And the reason why we hear so many wonderful things about red light therapy, why it actually works, is because it's expanding the exclusion zone water. It's improving your mitochondria function. You're making more of that subcellular melatonin and you're repairing. And that's basically why we have all those effects from red light therapy and things like that.
But
So
also, well, and then the reason that it would be a good choice for some people is that it's inclement weather. Like
yeah.
if it's too hostile outside and you can't get outside, then that's when I would use it.
Mhm.
So also though, if people like are going to work and it's dark and then they come home and it's dark, now that's kind of a problem. Honestly, if I had a desk job where I had like I couldn't just make my environment exactly the way I wanted it and be at home, in other words, to have time to do
Mhm.
these things, I would get a little red light. There's little cool ones you can buy just to put on a desk that shine right on your face or, like 2 feet away, whatever. I would get one of those, for
I
sure.
agree. I
So,
agree.
but also, Vanessa, the thing about it is there's this like epidemic of histamine issues. And part of that can also be skin issues, right? In the wintertime, a lot of people have more skin problems or rashes and eczema and all that kind of
Because they're
stuff.
getting less infrared light. They're
Yes,
getting sunlight.
you're like dehydrated at a subcellular level, your
Yeah.
exclusions on water. Plus, you're probably surrounded, if you're in an office environment, let's be honest, you're gonna be surrounded by hostile non-native frequency or non-native electromagnetic frequencies. So you got to get that red light somehow, right? And so if you can't get outside or the weather's crappy, then you're going to need to find a way to supplement. That's something I would supplement, like not the vitamin D. It's not about that. We want to supplement it for our exclusions on water and for our melatonin. So that's when you would want to use a red light device. But there's other ways too that you can get it, right?
Yeah, well, firelight, I love it. Like firelight I mean, I sleep pretty well, but if I want to have the best night's sleep that I'm dreaming of, I just gotta go sit outside in my fire for a little while. And I don't know, something about that is just so soothing to my mitochondria in my body and just I don't know, it creates the best sleep. But yeah, firelight will also do the same thing as a red light therapy device. It has the same frequencies, right?
Maybe
Uh,
it's smoke scented hair though that helps you sleep better.
Maybe. It doesn't bother me. I actually like that smell. That's
I
weird.
know
Is it
I do too.
weird? Oh, okay. That's not weird. I don't like it when it gets in my eyes, but I love the smell of it. Like I love camping. I love sitting by a campfire. I'm all about that. And so we have like a little, fireplace outside, that I love that I'm so excited about because I'm going to use it as much as I can this winter. So
Okay. Yes.
yeah. And then sauna is the other one too.
Yep.
Like, so if you buy a sauna, I recommend a low EMF sauna. You want one that has low non-native EMFs. Um, but it has to have near infrared. That's really important because if it doesn't have all the frequencies of it, first of all, you want it to be an infrared. Best to have all three, like far, mid, and near, but you want to have near infrared because near infrared is the one that helps create more subcellular melatonin. So if you buy a sauna or a red light therapy device, that's not what we recommend. Make sure that it has near infrared.
Mhm.
Okay, because that's really going to be the one, that's the frequency of light that you really want to have your body exposed to. So, yeah. And then there's movement. Every time you move, your body makes its own infrared heat, right? Like, like, what are those, like, not the temperature maps, but when people wear those goggles and they see the red, that's your body's infrared. Like, what is that called, Heather? You know what I'm talking about?
Can't remember, Vanessa.
When you wear the goggles and you see people at night, there's a word for it, right? But
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't
yeah.
remember.
And you see that red in them, and that's your infrared light your body's making, right? So your body makes this too. And movement helps your body generate more infrared as well, which is, yeah.
Are you talking
So
about the night vision goggles? I don't know what it's
thank you. Night vision goggles. My brain was not thinking about what that was called. But yeah, when you wear night vision goggles, you're going to see the infrared in the human being that you see. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing their light. You're
That's so
seeing their light, right? We don't ever think about it that way, but that's what you're seeing.
that's
It's like
neat.
so cool, right?
Yep. The other
Yeah.
way to help your body make more infrared heat is to use cold therapy. Now, we have a whole podcast on this, you guys. So go back, and I don't remember what number it is. I should look that up already, but oh well. It's like we only have like 70 podcasts by now, right? So you can look it up. Um, and I would definitely recommend review or listening to it for the first time or reviewing because cold exposure used to be I never could have imagined myself doing that before, Vanessa, like ever. Like I hated to be cold. I literally had to sleep with a hot water bottle for years. My hands and feet
Wow.
would be freezing, like to the point where it was painful. I mean, it was ridiculous. So I didn't realize how much I was lacking sunlight, and that's what I attribute it to, right? So um now I don't have any of that. And I actually crave cold, which is like that's like a night and day, as we would call it. Like it's so different. And I started doing the for reals, the cold exposure in the Pacific Ocean for a couple of years before I moved to the desert. And I overdid it in the beginning, and then I found out that wasn't great. But I didn't like feel horrible. I actually felt amazing. Like it was almost euphoric. Like I would get done and I would have and I was bouncing off the walls. Like I had so
Yeah,
much
so much
energy
energy.
and I had such a good mood and it was amazing. And that lasted for a couple months and then I didn't get that anymore. And I thought, well, that sucks. But I was staying in too long to where my hands and feet were numb and then I had to wear gloves and booties because it was about 50, 55 degrees. Like it's not like it's cold. It's not
Mhm.
ice cold, but it's definitely really cold. But it was also in the ocean, so I got all the minerals and it was just like it was
Mm.
glorious.
Yeah,
Swimming with the
beautiful.
otters and all the cool things. But then there was a couple shark attacks. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll dial it back a little bit.
I'd
Yeah.
be a little scared.
And it was really serious too, so it was kind of scary. And it was by the point that I had swum out by that same spot, and I thought, oh my God. So now what I'm doing, it's interesting, Vanessa, because just now, and it's still 100 degrees here every day. Like I have to tell you, it's supposed to be fall, but we're still in the desert, hot, weather.
Well, you're in a new environment, so your body's adjusting to that, right? So yeah.
Sun is shifting. You know how it's amazing when you are sun, like you're heliocentric, right? So the sun has moved so much where it rises, it's like way over there now. But
Yes.
something about the frequencies has really signaled to my body that I'm now ready for cold. So this morning I had a cold shower and I was just like, oh my God, it feels so good.
Mhm.
Granted, the water's not super cold because the pipes aren't that cold yet, but they
Yeah.
will be soon. So I start now though to prepare myself. You don't want to jump in there at December from your 75-degree heated, home into some, really cold water. It's going to jar your system.
Mhm. I think of it the same way as building like our solar callus, right? So in the spring, you want to get out in the sunlight, right? You want to gradually and slowly have your body like adjust to this light, the strong UVB light, right? And you're going to slowly do the same thing in the cold. Like, okay, it's starting to get a little bit chillier here now. I still go outside in my pajamas bare feet. Like that's what I do, right? And I'm still wearing shorts. Everybody's bundled up, right? I mean, walking in the morning, they got their coats on and they got pants on. I'm still in shorts, like I'm still very light layers, like, so that's how I do, like gradually build up the cold exposure. And like I always do I actually really crave like cold showers in the summer when it's hot actually too. So I do a lot of cold showers for the summer, but now in the winter what I do is I kind of alternate hot and cold a little bit. And we have my husband converted the pool to salt water. So I'm like, hon, can you just like leave that open? He's like, how long you want to leave that open for?
So
I
cool.
have to use the blow up one that I have, for a cold exposure. But yeah, I like cold exposure more through just being outside more than I love jumping in cold water personally. Everybody's different, you know. That's kind of more my
Well,
jam.
but Vanessa, it takes, so I want people to know that it takes a little longer of just being
Yes.
outside cold than it would be if you're like submerged in a body of water.
Yeah, so if you want to jump in some cold water, you need like a minute, two, three, whatever. You don't need a ton of time. But if you want to go outside in the cold weather, you need like an hour, to really get the benefits, maybe. But I also learned this from Carrie, which I didn't even write down, just mention that your palms of your hands and the soles of your feet are very gelatinous. So like if you stand on the snow, like I do a lot of times, or put your hands in the snow, you get the benefit of cold quicker, or on the back of your neck or on your face. So I tend to do that in the winter anyway. Like I'll go outside still in bare feet, put my hands in the snow, put some snow on my face like a weirdo. Probably people are like, what is she doing? So, but you get the benefits faster that way because of those parts of the body are just more sensitive to that and they pull it in faster. But what the cold is doing, which I think is amazing, is it's helping your body make more of its own infrared, like we mentioned, right? Um, but it also, I just heard this from Carrie today. I'm learning all the things Carrie. Maybe we should send her this podcast and tell her to do it. But I heard her this morning say how cold exposure helps your body make its own UV light, which also helps maintain your melanin, which is exactly what the podcast we did with Dr. Alexis Cowan. I had asked, like, how come I don't lose my tan in the winter? That's why, because I honor the cold and the darkness, and my body's also making its own UV light, which helping me maintain my melanin.
It's
Uh,
amazing.
Want to maintain that because melanin is a major antioxidant in the body. It's, very, very supportive to health and healing. It's very protective to your cells, to your brain inflammation, or to your brain health, your central nervous system. So you want to maintain that the best you can. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So cool.
Mhm.
So, the other thing that we want to mention, you guys, is about leptin and the relationship between that and your winter, body, basically. Because leptin
Mhm.
is one of your master hormones, along with cortisol and melatonin. And leptin is really, really, they're all tied to light. They're like light-based hormones, right? So leptin is really important because that's the one that regulates your energy management system, and it's going to have like a major impact on how much weight you're carrying, to be honest, because body fat is a source of fuel for your body. So if you're going to all the parties, you're staying up late, you got tons of blue light exposure, you're eating a lot of sugar at night and all these parties and stuff, your leptin's going to suck, right? It's going to be either too high, or you're going to have a problem with your leptin. It's not going to dock into the hypothalamus at night so that it can manage and do its work, what it needs to do when it's docked, and takes a pulse on your energy needs. So that's why you're going to gain weight in the winter if you live a typical modern indoor lifestyle. It's going to be bad, right? And you're going to get, basically, you're also getting very inflamed. So leptin is tied to mood as well. You're going to get, in addition to
The
having
immune system, hormones, fertility.
all the things, all of the things. So you're going to have inflammation. Your mood is going to tank because you're not, you're imbalanced, right? You're going to gain weight. It's all like things are not good. So, see, also though, I want to differentiate the mood thing because in the winter, you're going to have some cortisol in the morning, but it's not going to be like summer, like this massive energy burst that we want to have for harvesting and doing the things we were intended to do in the summer, right? Get ready for winter, put on a little extra weight in the summer because we're getting ready to fast more in the winter, right? And there's like food scarcity back in the day when we didn't have food shipped all over and grown in greenhouses and all
We
the
should
things.
be honoring some food scarcity still in the winter
I
time.
mean, yeah, eat less in the winter. Yeah, we could do a whole podcast just on the food aspects of winter. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that, and I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying,
I'm
Vanessa?
sorry. I'm sorry. Uh, I
Well,
don't know.
anyways, if you're but your mood, so I remember now. So you're going to be more mellow in the winter because
Yes. And
you're going to feel more, the melatonin is going to make you feel more cozy and more calm and more like warm and fuzzy. That's the good time to cuddle more, to hug more, to have more sex, do all the fun things with your mellow mood because you're not supposed to be all hyper like summertime. You want
yes.
to embrace the slower pace. That's a whole part of it. So if you feel like more sleepy in the winter, don't
Mhm.
worry. But if you fight against it and you force yourself to go, 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 stay up late and eat all the things, you're working against what your body naturally wants to do and be.
Yeah, you're supposed to be doing more healing and more rest and repair. Winter is the time of healing. And I love that you brought that up about the energy levels in winter versus summer, because all that strong UVB light is helping. You can also think of cortisol and melatonin in the seesaw, where cortisol should actually be higher in the summer and melatonin should be higher in the winter, right? Because you are going to make more cortisol in the summer when you're exposed to more UVB light, which is good because those two hormones are opposing, right? So
Mhm.
that's what you want. You want more energy in that summer to do all the work. Like we used to have to do all the work in the summertime. That's why you're more energetic now. And the winter is that time to heal and repair. So you are going to have less cortisol in the wintertime. And cortisol is not bad. Cortisol is good. It's just bad at the wrong time. And we don't want to be spiking it at night when it doesn't belong, which happens when we're exposed to artificial light. And I love that you brought in about the leptin, because leptin is so important. And leptin regulates your energy and your appetite, so many things, and your mood, like you mentioned, your immune system. And basically, our stored fat, right, is stored energy. And when the body doesn't realize, because leptin is not docking to the hypothalamus, that you have, like, it's supposed to get a download at midnight when you're sleeping, around midnight, in between midnight and 2 a.m. And if your body doesn't get that download because you're exposed to artificial light, or because you're eating, holiday food at night, okay, what happens is your body doesn't get that download. It's like blocked. The download doesn't happen. And the body doesn't realize, oh, Vanessa has all this stored energy, which is fat, on her body. We don't need to eat that much tomorrow. That's what it says. She has enough energy. She doesn't need to eat too much. We can tap into some of that stored energy and use it, right?
Mhm.
And most people are leptin resistant, where they're not tapping into that stored energy. So that's what we were talking about when we're talking about leptin. So if you're eating all the snacks at night, especially, I would recommend not eating at night if you can, because that's going to impair your body's leptin. It's going to impair your body's melatonin and repair, and your gut lining won't repair, all the things, right? So don't be eating late into the night. And I want to say one more thing about that. But then also, that's how, the light and the food really are the two things that are driving the leptin resistance, the eating at night and the artificial blue light and not getting enough sunlight. So you want to work on those things to support that. But I also don't want to feel like we're fear mongering you and being like, you cannot go to any of the parties, you cannot do anything, you have to be stuck inside all the time, you have to be in the darkness and being cold, and like you just have to prioritize it. So like if you have like it's December and you have a bunch of parties you want to go to, like maybe you prioritize which one you want to go to out of those three. Or you say, I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna wear my blue blockers and I'm not gonna eat that crappy food, right? Because I want to be in community, I want to be in connection, I want to be with these people, I love these people, but I'm still making my health a priority by taking care of what I want to do for me.
Mhm.
And then the reason why food becomes less addictive is because leptin is regulated, right? Because that's what I meant before when we were talking about at the beginning, right? Because that's regulated. Your body's like, I don't need more energy. I've already gotten enough, right? I'm good. I have enough from the light that I've been exposed to, all the grounding that I've done, right? All these other things that we could get into, right? Your body has enough energy. It's like, I don't need that,
Mhm.
right? Because you're giving your body what it already needs, and it's not going to require those other things. And you'll bounce back faster, like if you do go off track when you do these kinds of practices, right? So yeah, it's just I could talk about it forever. I get pumped up.
But also everyone getting sick in the winters, it's like, well, yeah, because if your circadian rhythm is mismatched and you're inflamed, your leptin's too high, and you're not getting enough of red light exposure, your immune system's not working, all the things kind of are subpar.
Yep.
Basically, you're more susceptible to getting some kind of imbalance, and it manifests as a cold or the flu or whatever. So
Yeah.
try some of these practices, you guys, and just do a little bit at a time. If this is all new for you, then start with getting, a really high quality red light bulb from Midwest Red Light Therapy or one of those same really good companies, right? Well, number one, blue blockers, get a red light, some red light bulbs. They're really not that expensive. They last a long time. And these are LEDs. Like we say LEDs are bad, but the real quality red ones are good. They're really good. So
Right.
just
It's not the LED that's bad. People ask this question all the time. LED means light emitting diode. It's not really the LED, it's the frequencies of light that are coming
that.
from those LEDs, right?
Right, it's the blue dominant. Yeah, blue and
Yes.
green dominant.
Yep.
So, but do the blue blockers. Like these are the bookends you want to do is figure out how to get natural light exposure in the morning, and then you want to get the blue blockers on at night. You start there and you just build and stack a little bit at a time some of these other practices because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. Like stress is not good. Do not get neurotic about this. Like just
No. It
do
impairs mitochondria function. The stress of this, if you're stressing about this, it impairs mitochondria function by 15 to 20%, almost the same as non-native EMFs. So if you're stressing about it, yeah, you're going to make things worse. Just slowly but surely implement some of these practices and principles. Heather and I didn't do this all in a day. We did it over time, maybe a year, when it comes to all these things, like really getting them down solid. So don't be like, I have to do everything today. That's really, really important.
well, yeah, I
And
mean,
I want
I've been working on this for 7 years, right? It's been that
amazing.
long, I know. But
Well,
we have, if you need help, you can book one-on-one sessions with me for any of this stuff we've mentioned, and also for classical homeopathy and general coaching as well, for anything you might need help with. And Vanessa, you have some lovely offerings too right now.
yeah, well, I would definitely recommend get the Thrive in Winter webinar. It's a 3-hour webinar, which go over all the things about winter. Many of the things that we talked about here, but I go into more depth, especially about how to light your home, how to use sunlight, how to use sauna, cold therapy, red light therapy, like the benefits, and how to like not protocols, because remember, you are the protocol, but like advice and kind of guidelines around how to use those kinds of things and how to implement those kinds of things. And I go into the diet as well, hugely, like what to eat in winter and how to implement that, because we should be eating that local ancestral seasonal diet. So I go very much into that. And of course, there's always one-to-one coaching if you want to work with me there, or just a one-off coaching if you just need one session to get some questions answered. I do personalized healthcare plans. And then also when Heather was recommending about, was saying about those acutes that you get, like those flus and colds and whatnot, things like that, you know, definitely if you're in a very low level of health, you might experience that, but you might not. Although I always think that, getting those things is not necessarily a bad sign always either. So just if you get a flu or something, that's not always necessarily bad, because it is the way that your body detoxes. It is the way that your body up levels its health. Um, Especially if you get a fever with that, I'm going to be thrilled. Heather's going to be thrilled, right? But I also have a homeopathy influenza course and ear infection course, which can be rampant this time of year, especially if you have kids. So I always recommend, like, if you if you want to use homeopathy to support that, you can always book an acute session with one of us. But you can learn how to do this on your own if you just understand the remedies and how to use them. So if you take one of my influenza courses or my ear infection courses, you can learn what remedies are indicated for the flu, what remedies are indicated for ear infections, and how to choose the right remedy for that situation. And I also go over like potencies and, dosing and all of that as well. So you can kind of be educated on that. And then you could treat those at home without having to go see, an allopathic doctor, and you're avoiding those medications that are not so great. So we're supporting the symptoms instead of suppressing the symptoms, which is always what we want to do. So those
That's
are
for acutes, but for chronic things, you definitely need to seek out
yes,
a book with one of us because that's a totally different picture. That has to be
yes.
tailored to your specific constellation of symptoms that you're presenting at the time. But the acutes, you can definitely do your own work on that.
Yes, I love that you mentioned that. Yeah, no, if you have chronic ear infections or you have chronic fatigue or you have chronic symptoms that you're nagging, you definitely want to book in with us for just a regular homeopathy session. But acutes, yeah, you can manage. If you know a little bit of information about homeopathy, you can manage them, on your own, which is it's invaluable information, I would say. And you got to have the remedies in your hand in the home, and don't take the course, when you're already sick. You need to do it previously so you're prepared in advance, because you're like, oh, I've got the flu. Let me take that course. Well, that's going to be a little too much, right? You're going to just need, and by the time you get the remedies, like have it in your arsenal, like so you're prepared, especially if you're a parent, like
Yeah,
especially if you're a parent.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today, everybody. We really are grateful for your listening to us. And we will also invite you to email us if you have any
Yeah.
suggestions or requests for something you want to learn about. We will put links in the show notes to some of the companies we've mentioned today if you're interested in looking into their products. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.